Okay, let's go ahead and just check our list here. So, young kid tragically lost his parents at a young age, was ostracized by society, and was very poorly treated by your adopted family. Believed he had no friends and the world hated him, so you started a criminal organization. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, cool. You're free to go. Let's see. You seem to be a young woman of your early 20s. Take very high value in your physical appearance. It says here that you failed a audition for Team Rocket.
Yeah, they couldn't handle me because I was too pretty.
Interesting. Well, we don't really have anything here. Well, oh, wait, hold on. Wait, actually. Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. I'm getting a call. Give me a second. Uh huh. Okay. Miss Iroaya? Yeah, that's your name. Yeah, so it seems that we do have a spot for you at a World 3. So you can head on over there, although you'll have to be careful if you do tend to mess up. You really only have one shot and you will end your contract. So go ahead, have fun over there. I'm sure it'll be a great time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to end well. Anyway, next up here, young kid, very young kid, heart disease. Apparently, you're an administrator of a dark part of the internet or something. Survived your heart disease. Yeah, seems like you're on your way to making a full recovery.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get ice cream with my friend later.
Well, good. Since you're here and you're clearly showing signs of a healthy body, you're looking all good to go and you're on your way to making a full recovery, you can go ahead and you're free to go. Okay, let's see. We got a twofer here. Edgy boy with a scar who wants to beat somebody at a net battle, and nerdy kid with glasses because we have to fit some archetypes. We can use more characters like you. Get in here. Good morning, world. This is the Space Cowboy coming from the Interplanetary Good Vibe Zone, and welcome back to another BBS chat. I hope you guys got a chance to watch the other two. Go ahead and please do so if you not get the chance to. But today we are here with a pretty fairly easy topic to get into, although this is something I could probably make a couple of follow-up videos on, because we are going to be talking about the forgotten characters of Battle Network. So Battle Network has a lot, and I mean a lot of characters, especially if you get into the whole thing about the games and how I've stated before that the continuity is really all over the place and kind of doesn't really matter for the most part, at least as far as the latter half of the games are concerned. The first three games still do have some form of continuity, even if it's not like all the way together. But yeah, we have a lot of characters that were introduced throughout these games, and some of these characters do tend to come back for some games and do play some kind of role, so I'm going to be very careful to not pick certain characters. This one's going to be a little obvious for some of the characters, of course, going by the intro. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's not waste any time to get into it, but of course, before we do, if you like what I do, please hit that sub button and go ahead and hit the like button as well to show your interest in these videos. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into our first character. We have Madoi Iroaya, or Miss Mad from the first game, one of the OG original members of World 3, and she only appears in the first game. So this is a character that does not have any crazy impact in the story at all. She is very much a lackey, like a World 3 lackey, a Team Rocket, esque kind of character. Not a character that really shows up all that much. I say that, but like I said, she only appears in the first game, so I don't know why I said that. But I find it interesting that not a lot of previous World 3 characters come back, in a sense of, a lot of like the people, the underlings that were under Wily. We do have at least a couple of characters that have in the past that usually turn over to the good side. But with Miss Mad, she only came up in the first game, and it's a little funny because we have a character like Mr. Match who showed up in a total of 3 games, and even though he's not a character that has a crazy importance in the overarching story, he is a character that does come back, especially when we are talking about Battle Networks 4 and Battle Networks 6. He operates navies that are tied to the double soul / cross system, so we actually do get something out of it. Plus they do kind of pay some homage to the fact that Mr. Match is just up and walking around, like Lan does reference, like, hey, are you out doing your own good again? And it's like Mr. Match is like, no, I'm actually here, doing my thing. I'm out here doing very well on my own. And he seems like he's very much turning over a new leaf. And it's kind of unfortunate that, with Battle Network 6, we were dealing with Dr. Wily one last time, that we don't have Mr. Match kind of confront Dr. Wily or have him join Lan dealing with Dr. Wily. We don't really get any of like the original World 3 people reacting to Wily or dealing with Wily post being 1. And with Miss Mad, I could easily see her a character, like if they wanted to do Miss Mad very similar to Mr. Match, where she kind of just goes off and does her own thing, or you can have her be one of the original members that actually decides to stick around with Dr. Wily. Maybe she just doesn't see a purpose in defecting against Wily. You can really go either way. And it would have been interesting to see that character pop back up at some point, at least like one more minor appearance. But yeah, that's Miss Mad. Of course, now let's get into the second character. This is a fan favorite one. This is Sean Obihiro, main antagonist of the second game. Of course, he's the ringleader of Gospel, and this guy's a very interesting character. He lost his parents due to net terrorism, or essentially terrorism through the internet, like a very tragic accident, and he became an orphan at a young age. His foster family did not treat him well. He did not have a great time making friends, and he was ostracized by society for the fact that he was an orphan. And of course, being a young kid at that age, that's going to have a very big effect on you. So he essentially becomes the main villain of BN2, and everything kind of gets resolved to some degree by the end of the second game. He kind of gives us the whole spiel of his backstory and all that stuff. Lan confronts him, and Lan is the one to reach out to Sean to help him, to tell him that he will be his friend, of course, so long as he tries to redeem himself and forgo all of his misdoings and everything. But Sean is a very, like I said, very interesting character, and I feel like it's a no-brainer that he should have been included in the main cast to some degree, because it feels like him and Lan could have had a sort of close brother connection. And he even shows up in BN3 to help out Dr. Hikari. He only shows up fairly briefly, but he still does come back, and he's acknowledged by Lan, and he even shows up towards the end of the game, like he's a part of all of the characters coming to like stay by Lan and cheer Lan up because he lost Mega Man, or no, air quotes, lost Mega Man towards the end of Battle Network 3. It's just weird to me because this character could have been like an adoptive brother. Like I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this would have been so cool if Dr. Hikari was he adopts Sean into his family, and we can kind of have this whole like sort of brother dynamic between Lan and Sean. They grow closer. There's still maybe some sort of stigmatization in the back of Sean's mind because of all of the experiences that he had, so he's still a little wary about being adopted into a new family, and he might have a hard time trying to grow close with Lan's family and friends. But of course, being the kid that Lan is, and being the kind of positive father that Dr. Hikari is, I don't see any reason why Sean wouldn't grow up and to be close with Lan and kind of be better off with this newfound family. I don't know, I think it would have been very cool for Sean to be like a really good addition to the main cast. And it really sucks that we had to throw him away. He never really comes back. Now, let's get into our next character for this one. This one's going to be very brief because we're not just talking about human characters, we're also talking about net navies. So, Pharaohman.exe, a very powerful net navi, rivals Base, rivals Mega Man, rivals the Life Virus from the first game and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of sucks. He only shows up in the first game. He's a secret boss that you encounter later in the post game. I do believe he shows up in some cutscenes here and there in the main story, although not by much. But I do think it's a little weird that this character never comes back, considering how important of a role he kind of has in the games. Definitely does have a bigger role as far as the anime is concerned. But it's weird because we don't get to have this character come back in any of the games. Maybe we could have folded him into the overall more centric plot. Yes, he does make a very brief appearance in Battle Network 2, And when I say very brief, I mean very brief. So Pharaoh Man, again, not a crazy important character, but would have been cool to see him come back, especially if we could have gotten him for another boss fight and all that stuff. The next one, though, is a very big one. So Mamoru Urakawa. So this is a major side character that pops up during BN3. He is the administrator of the Undernet, as we are to find out towards the middle half of the game. And he has the same heart disease that killed Lan's brother, Hub Hikari. Although unlike Hub, he actually survives and he's making a recovery. And he is a character that grows to have a bond with Lan. You know, Lan feels a very close connection with Mamoru, you know, of course, for the obvious reasons that I've stated, you know, just a second ago. He's a big character for Lan in the third game. He's the administrator of the Undernet, which is crazy that such a young ass kid has that kind of like responsibility. It really doesn't make any lick of sense when you think about it, but that's Japanese JRPGs for you. They kind of really just throw things at the wall. We just kind of see what works. This is also a game geared towards children, so we most likely were not thinking about what a lot of the implications of these things when we were younger. But yeah, you think about it now and it's just like, wait, no, that's, or even, you know, when you're a teenager later in your years, you know, if you're fans of these games, and you're just like, wait, what the hell? This young ass kid is an administrator of essentially like the dark web, the dark part of the internet. You know, it's very interesting. I don't necessarily know how you could fold him into the games later on, but it is a character that I feel like should have popped up at least sporadically throughout the games or something like that. Well, maybe Mamoru could be taken over to Dr. Hikari's lab, you know, and they could run some studies to help him recover a little more, or maybe Mamoru might even pick some things up at the lab. It would have been cool to see Mamoru potentially help Lan with more of his upgrades, you know, considering that, again, he is the administrator of the Undernet. I don't see how he wouldn't be able to help Lan navigate certain areas of the internet, or maybe have Mamoru be a part of the later games where he can kind of like solve a problem in the background, or if there are some characters that do need help and it's like, oh man, I wonder who could help us, and Mamoru could show up later and be like, hey Lan, your dad gave me a call and, you know, I helped out with like this thing. So again, like, it's crazy that a character that was very big in the third game doesn't make like at least one more big appearance in the later games. And of course, you know, with another character that's tied to Mamoru, or well, I should say potentially tied to Mamoru. We'll get here in a second. I'll save that in a minute. But before we get to that character, we have Tamako Shirazumi, another character that pops up in Battle Network 3, and she also makes an appearance in Battle Network 4. Like Miss Mad, not a major character. She's pretty much just a really cool, you know, lady. She's a very skilled net battler. She's the operator of Metal Man, and she provides you a double soul when you defeat Metal Man in the fourth game. Although, I just learned recently that she's actually related to Mamoru. So she is Mamoru's mom's younger sister, and therefore being Mamoru's aunt. And that's kind of cool, because considering how important of a character Mamoru was in the third game, Tamako doesn't show up outside of where she is in the third game. Like, she's kind of just there as a character where you fight Metal Man, but she's not really involved in the third game's story all that much, and you figure she would, considering that her nephew has a heart disease that could kill him. So I don't know, she could have came back for another game. Not all that important outside of her tie to Mamoru. But yeah, she's still a cool character. She has a cool design. She's the operator of one of my favorite characters in Battle Network, being, you know, the Battle Network version of Metal Man. And it just would have been cool to see her come back. Last but not least, I don't think this one's going to be a surprise to anybody. Serenade.exe. I don't think I have to explain this person all that much. They are the Underking, the ruler of the Undernet. They are one of the strongest net nabbies in the entirety of the series, and they only appear as a secret boss in Battle Network 3. I don't understand why they never came back at all, not even once, in the later 3 games. And considering what I'm about to mention, like how I said that this character could be potentially tied to Mamoru, well, just like how Mamoru is the administrator of the Undernet and Serenade is the Underking, the ruler of the Undernet, it has been heavily implied / theorized for years at this point that Serenade is Mamoru's net navi, which would be pretty friggin' wild if that is the case. Again, that's never been confirmed, not even in the manga. Serenade is a completely separate entity in the manga. I don't even think Mamoru shows up in the manga, if I'm not remembering correctly. And Serenade and Mamoru also do not exist in the anime at all. Serenade is a very important character, at least as far as Battle Network 3 is concerned, and in the manga they are definitely an important character. Like, they are one of the few characters that could actually fight base to a standstill and kind of push him to lose. They also gift Proto Man the Muramasa Blade. Serenade is a very interesting entity because they are not an entirely evil person. Like, yeah, they are the ruler of the internet. They do have a dark nature to themselves, but they in of themselves are not inherently evil. If anything, you probably would think Serenade is like a good person off their personality. But once things kind of do get serious, Serenade will show you who's boss. And I really do think it's just wild to me that Serenade could have been like this major force in the background of these games. And they definitely could have popped up at least like a couple more times at some point. And I definitely would have loved to fight Serenade again as well. You really only get to fight Serenade in the third game. And the fight, while it's okay, it's not anything spectacular, but I would have loved to have Serenade kind of be like that second, like, really cool fight. Because, like, you know, Base, when he popped up in the first game as a secret boss, he wasn't really anything all that special. But, you know, of course, he's like the main guy, and he gets better as a boss fight. I say that considering how horrendous some of those fights can be in those later games. But still, like, just the fact of like a really cool, interesting, like, secret boss that you're not going to get to fight in the main games. Serenade could have been that other character on the side, just like Base, where this is your reward towards the end. Not only do you get to fight, you know, this other character over here, but you get to fight Serenade. And they really could have fleshed out this character over these games and gave them a whole bunch of cool, unique abilities, like really emphasize that nature of, you know, what makes this person the ruler of the Undernet, this place that you are constantly visiting in all of these games, by the way. Like, we make references to the Undernet all the time in all of these games. You're visiting that area. There's no reason why Serenade should not have popped up in these stories to kind of be like a chaotic guide to Mega Man, or considering, you know, how much Serenade does like Mega Man. I could definitely see Serenade helping out Mega in some instances, but of course in some way where they're not just outright solving the problem for them. You know, they're kind of like giving them little hints and nudging them along the way, but, you know, not like giving them everything to kind of, you know, solve the problem, whatever. I don't know. You guys get what I mean, right? At least I hope you do. But yeah, that's the last character that we're going to get into with this. Of course, I could make a second or even third follow-up entry into this, you know, topic alone. You know, just talking about forgotten characters and, you know, how they maybe could have gotten more involved. You know, that doesn't just have to be the human characters. They can even be net navies and all that stuff. So, of course, you know, let me know what you guys think about these characters. Do you have any other characters that you think have been pretty forgotten or just dropped off, or that you think could have been more relevant and important, at least as far as the games were concerned and all that stuff? And yeah, we'll be back with another BBS chats soon at some point. So, like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are commenting on the videos. Let me know what you think. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you never miss any updates on uploads and live streams on the channel. And make sure you're interacting with me more on the community/post section of the channel. And I will see you in the next BBS chats. This is the Space Cowboy, and I hope you guys have a good night.